Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Say What podcast. My name is Hannah, and on this podcast, we like to talk about marriage, purity culture, relationship, sex, sometimes parenting, which we are going to talk about today, and just a lot of fun, girly things. It's a real good time over here at the podcast, and I'm so excited that you are here with us. We have some big news for the Eden. I'm so excited. The Eden is now on Amazon, and this is a huge deal, you guys. Like, getting your product on Amazon just also feels so real, and it just opens the audience up to so many other people who may not have found me on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, and now are finding me on Amazon. If you're just on there searching for Bible study tools or stocking stuffer or gift for my bestie, like, I will show up on Amazon, and it's so exciting. And I would love it if you would support the launch by getting the Eden off Amazon and letting me know what you think about it on Amazon, if you catch my drift. That would just mean the world to me if you would just leave a review to let me know what you think. So I'm so excited. It will link in the episode notes here, but it's happening. It's so cool because one of you guys who are part of the community, part of the Say What community, actually reached out to me about this, and we've been working on it together for a couple weeks now. And so it's just so exciting to finally put all the details together and get it out there for more people to see. I'm so freaking excited. So if you are wanting to buy the Eden, buy it on Amazon. You will still have, if you're, on Amazon Prime, I'm not exactly sure the Prime shipping stuff, but I'm still shipping it next day or within 2 days because that is what I'm trying to do for you. So you're still getting your fast shipping. That's not changing. It's still at this moment shipping in my house. And I actually sold out completely of the cream ones, and I've almost sold out of the pink ones. And so I just placed a reorder this week, which was super exciting. So none of them are sold out, but so you can get as many as you want. But I just ordered some more in preparation for launching on Amazon. I just believe that the Lord is in this, and he's going to use this as a way to get in front of more women who need to experience freedom. And so if you have been wanting to buy yourself a gift or your friend a gift, or you're looking for a good stocking stuffer, or if you're just in need of some freedom from shame, the Eden is for you, and it's on Amazon. So that is super exciting for me and for us and for my family and all the things. I also wanted to remind you that I do have gift guides on ShopMy. Even though me and ShopMy are currently beefing, not really beefing, but I can't connect my Instagram. I've been having the hardest time connecting my Instagram to ShopMy because I am working for a marketing firm, and I have a bunch of accounts connected to my personal Facebook page, and it just will not connect the correct account. And it's very frustrating. So I love ShopMy, but I'm really hoping they can figure this out and help me out because I want to keep using it, and I want my Instagram to be connected so I can do the collaboration stuff and the giftings and all those things with ShopMy, so I can bring you guys the best recommendations of things. But anyways, those are my ad-like things that I had to tell you at the top of the podcast. What I wanted to lead off with today is that when you are about to start your period, tell me why every person feels like never been uglier, never been bigger, never been sadder, never been more or less motivated. Never been more or less motivated. Does that make sense? I've never been less motivated. I can't speak. Never had an original thought. Not one time ever, actually, in my entire life have I ever had an original thought. I'm telling you, my period just affects me so much. And I don't know if it affected me this much before I had a baby, but it's like ever since I had a baby, I get every cramp. I get every negative thought into my brain. I am taken out by it. And I've not even started yet. It's starting tomorrow. And just the lead up to it is killing me. And this is actually going to come out after it has happened. But anyways, I just know it's a universal experience that girls experience this. And if men had periods, they would get the week off work. If men had periods, they would get the week off work. And I'm not necessarily asking for the whole entire week off work, but I could use a day or two because the cramps kill me. Now, Jovi helps tremendously with the cramps. I'm not lying to you about that. I use Jovi every single time I'm on my period, and it helps tremendously. And their new Rhea ones that are disposable also are really great. I've been using that on my tailbone. It's so wonderful. But I could just do without the cramps. I could do without the cramps. And I know that the menstrual cup helps tremendously with the cramps as well because they were a lot worse when I was using tampons. It feels a lot better since I don't use tampons anymore. And I'm thankful I don't have to worry about all of the toxic chemicals in tampons. But let me tell you, it's like my period comes and every bad thing that has ever happened in the world or will happen, I feel like is happening to me. And I like can't get off the couch. And it's so frustrating. I'm so unmotivated to do anything. I'm like, okay, my child's nap time. I'm going to go take a shower. I'm going to get ready. I'm going to film a bunch of videos when I get ready. I'm going to work on my podcast. I'm going to do all the work that I need to do. And I have all these goals and aspirations. And today it was like, I'm going to sit on the couch. And I was clocked in working. I had a lot of work I had to do. So I was being productive, but I needed to like go do some other things. And part of that was getting ready, and I could not do it. I knew I would feel better once I did it. And now it's 5 o'clock, I think. Yeah, 5 o'clock when I'm recording this. And I have a full face of makeup on. Full face makeup. I will say I have been using the Merit kit now, and I really am obsessed. I love it so much. I did have to add on some bronzer and some blush because when I record on video, you have to do different makeup versus like day to day. But besides that, my whole face is Merit, and I guess I shouldn't say that. Yeah, I mean, the big parts of my face are Merit, and I love that. The non-Merit things I use, I guess, are my setting spray and the primer. So I have found that it does go on a lot better if you use a primer. But I just wasn't trying to use my e.l.f. primer when I'm going to take it off in a couple hours. So another thing about my face, we're just sharing a lot of things about my face and body today, is I have a sty coming in on my left eye. And something you may not know about me is when I was in 6th grade, I got a sty on my eye and it turned into cellulitis. So we can't have that again. The sty is in a very different place than it was the last time when I had a sty on my eye. It was like in the very corner next to my nose. And then I had an abscess right in between my eyebrows, and those were connected. Those had the cellulitis. And the cellulitis was literally spreading to my brain, and I almost died because they did not know how to stop the cellulitis from getting to my brain. And thankfully they did, but like cellulitis is usually in your leg. Like it's not usually in your eye where mine was. So I'm about to go get a hard-boiled egg and rest it on my eye because we cannot be doing this. I cannot be getting a sty. Absolutely not. But I did still put makeup on it today, but I did not put any mascara on it because I cannot risk the sty getting worse. That is the worst thing in the world that you could do for a sty is keep putting makeup on it. And I did put some like regular makeup, but not a ton. But I'm not putting any mascara on for that reason. My sty girls can relate to the struggle that I'm currently facing with that. I think those are all my fun little life updates. Today's podcast is, I'm looking at my notes because my iPad is still not working. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I am back on my phone, sadly. I've got to figure out the iPad situation. It's just like, where's the time? Where's the time? There's so many things to do. But anyways, for now, we are on the phone. So, yes, what I wanted to talk about today is a little bit of motherhood, a little bit of parenthood, a little bit of parenting, and mostly how to prioritize your marriage while you're parenting young kids. So I don't talk a ton about parenthood. I don't talk a ton about like being a mom. I don't talk a ton about parenting, mostly because I care deeply about respecting my son's privacy. And I'll share a photo here and there, but I'm not like telling you, that the details of his life. I mentioned that he's going to preschool in the spring, but that's it. Like, I'm not going to tell you where he goes to school, the details of it. Like, I'm not going to tell you that just for privacy. I want to give him some kind of privacy. I'm not going to tell you when we're potty training. I might tell you afterwards. Who can say? But it's just like I'm not trying to tell you all the details of my child's life. I'm really trying to not exploit my 2-year-old. And so I don't talk a lot about being a mom. You definitely know I'm a mom, and it actually is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life. And I just want to be with my son 24/7, and I love him so much. I want to be with him 24/7, but I also enjoy a break. I really like a break. I'm a better mom, parent, wife, friend when I have a little bit of a break, but I mostly like to be with him, and I don't regret the 2 years that we've spent working from home while taking care of him. And I'm so grateful that I have a job that allows me to do that. However, it is hard to prioritize your marriage while you have a young child. And so I wanted to talk about that today because me and Thomas have a life group at our church that we meet at our house every other Monday, and it's all for parents with kids under 5. So It's a lot of chaos. Everybody brings their kids. It's husband and wife, bring your kids, and we have snacks, and we have kids everywhere. We literally have kids running around the house. It's really fun. It's, it's so fun to me because like we're all in the same stage of life at this moment. And it's just kind of like you tune out the child screaming when you're trying to share your deepest, darkest secrets. Well, I mean, it's not all that, but like you're sharing what you're going through. You're sharing your thoughts, your feelings. And then like my 2-year-old is screaming in your face. It just is like chaotic, but it's really fun. And I think everybody appreciates it because it's community. And, this is what it is. We've kind of gone back and forth about what the best way to do this small group is. And we've just landed on the chaos. We've just landed on letting the kids run around and play and have a good time because that's just like where we're at right now. And it's good to have community and it's good to do something with your spouse. Me and Thomas have always been in groups like, separately and done our own thing. And there's one group that we were in Colorado before we moved here where we were in a group together. And it was just so great. It was so great to be in a group together and to be able to experience that together. And I definitely think there's a time and a place for a men's group and a women's group. But I just love like being in a group together. And so we lead this group and it's really fun. And part of the group is that every week we ask a question that has to do with like where we're at in life, parenting usually, because we all are parents. And so we are just asking a question to get conversation started. We are in no way, shape, or form acting like I am the expert, like we know what we're doing, like we've handled this, like we're perfect parents, like Tate's the perfect child. I mean, he is the perfect child, but I'm definitely not like telling everybody that. I am telling everybody that. It's fine. But, I'm not acting like everything is perfect and we know what we're doing all the time. But I do think that over the 2 years that we've done this, that we have kind of figured out some things. But I also think that we are in a very unique situation because we both take care of our son throughout the day. So Thomas works from home Mondays and Wednesdays, and then he's off on Fridays. And so I'm the main caretaker for Tate on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. And I usually watch, like on Mondays and Wednesdays, do most of the things. Well, I shouldn't say most of the things. Thomas is going to hear me edit this and be like, interesting that you think you do most of the work on Mondays and Wednesdays. We really do tag team it. He does help out a lot, but I am by myself on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so I have a lot of help. But I am like the main caretaker of our child. And that's just how our family works. But I have a ton of help and I work from home and the TV helps and I have all those things. So I feel like when I go into these things that I feel like have helped us prioritize our marriage while we've had a young child, I also am sharing this from a place of like, that's my privilege that I get to have help throughout the day. And I know there's so many moms who like you're working from home and you are working from 9 to 5 every day by yourself. Dad doesn't get home till 5:30 or 6. And then you guys are trying to do all the things together and it's just really hard. So I just wanted to share that because I want you to understand kind of like where we're coming from. I will say it is still extremely hard for me. There have been so many days where I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I don't know how I'm going to continue on doing this. I don't know how I'm supposed to work a job and take care of my child. And I'm only working like technically 25 hours for my job. Now, if you add the podcast in there, which this is a job, it may look easy posting on social media. And I'm not being like, oh, you should see how hard it is. But wanting to be consistent and having posts that you make and responding to DMs and planning things out and scheduling, it just takes time. It's not hard, but it takes time. And so just, I think with my 2 jobs, that turns into 1 full-time job, working and then taking care of my son full time and also trying to be a wife and be a mom and be a friend. And, it's a lot of things to do all the time. I definitely wouldn't trade it for anything. It's all I've ever wanted. And I'm very grateful that I get to do this. But it is very hard. So I did want to share today just some things based off of my conversation that we had in life group, but also most of these are just kind of things that Thomas and I have figured out over the last 2 years of how to prioritize your marriage while parenting young children. So let's just get into it. So in no particular order, here are some things. The first thing is you have to act like a team. When you are on the same team, then it feels so much better. It also feels like you are trying to work together on things, which in turn improves your marriage. You have to remember that you're on the same team. You have to act like you're on the same team. You have to be on the same team. You have to both be equal parents. And in turn, that is prioritizing your marriage because if one person is like, if you feel like if you're not on a team when you're parenting and you're being like soloing things as far as like mom does literally everything and dad comes in and kisses goodnight and, is working for the family to provide, but isn't doing any of the parenting load, then that builds up a lot of resentment. And so in turn, your marriage is suffering because you have a lot of resentment. So you have to figure out how to act like a team. You have to figure out how to be equal parents. Now, I know that we're all in seasons of life where you have to take care of your child some way. So there may be one parent who is doing more of the heavy lifting and has more of the like taking care role. And so I know I say you need to be equal parents, but as I'm saying you're each pulling your weight in the way that you should be outside of just doing your jobs, because we all have a job we have to do. We all have a 9 to 5 in some way, shape, or form that we have to do, unless you are a rich Nepo baby. And in that case, I would love to be your friend. I'm just kidding. But I mean, kind of not if you have a boat. Like, I like boats. But we all have a job to do. So outside of like doing your job, having responsibility with parenting your child, if you're able to somehow find a way to make that like a good equalness between the two of you, and it may not, there's no way for it to be fully equal. There's no way for that to happen, but you're both putting in equal effort in some way to raise your child. That helps lessen resentment. Therefore, you are not bringing that in to your marriage. I know that I would have a lot of resentment for Thomas, and I still struggle with this, getting to leave and go to work. Now, I have a lot of resentment that he would get to leave and go to work. However, I don't want a job where I leave and go to work. So this is definitely a me problem. But hopefully, if you're listening, you can relate. I would get like mad at him that he would get to go to work and I have to be home all day. And I think it's because I was just struggling, and I still do, so much with working and taking care of my child. And thankfully, I'm about to get a break from that. And, Tate's going to go to preschool, and that's going to change everything. But it still is really hard. I'd feel resentment towards him, and I definitely would bring that into our marriage. And I'm like, well, you had a break. You got to do this. You got to leave the house. And I know that you maybe had a stressful day at work, but you weren't breastfeeding, doing your job, and taking care of your child, and making sure that you're all fed. And the list goes on. I was very big at, I did all this, you didn't do any of this. And that was really not helpful because I wasn't seeing what he's putting into our family. And then also sharing those things and how I was feeling definitely helped open up some areas where he could jump in and help. And I'm so proud of where we're at with this. Like, we really are equal parents. Like, Thomas is such a good dad. He knows how to take care of Tate. When my friend was in the hospital about a month ago, and within 30 minutes, I packed my stuff and left and was gone for 2 days, I didn't have to tell Thomas what to do. I literally didn't tell him a single thing. I said, okay, love you, Tate, bye. And I left. I didn't tell him a single thing because he knows how to take care of his child. And yes, he goes away during the day for work, but he also cares deeply about being invested in our child's life. And so he does what he can to know what our child eats, know how to take care of him, know what he likes, knows what he doesn't like. That way he is equally as involved. And something that we've done from the beginning with this is that Thomas would put Tate to bed every night. And so that was his full responsibility was bedtime. And then obviously I would come in and do the breastfeeding and stuff, but he would do the bath and the bedtime and all of that to try to really have that bonding time and experience for them. And then I'd come in and breastfeed. And another thing that I think was truly game changing for us, and I don't know that I hear a lot of parents talking about this, and it may be because of what Thomas's job is, that he doesn't have a physically exhausting job, which would probably be different. He wouldn't have been able to do this. I mean, Thomas goes and works at a church. It's a lot of emotional and spiritual work, and he does have some physical aspects to his job. Sometimes he has to climb really high on ladders to do stuff with lighting. He's the production director at our church. But, it's more emotional, physical, admin, leadership, not necessarily a physically hard job. But when Tate was waking up in the middle of the night, he would get up with me. So the nights that I was breastfeeding, he would get up with me every single night, and we'd go from our bedroom to Tate's bedroom because I didn't want to breastfeed in the bed because I would fall asleep. So we'd get up together, I'd sit in the chair, and he'd lay on the floor, and he would be with me every single night. He would do that. And in turn, that, number one, really confirmed that we are a team, that we are doing this together. That is both of our responsibility is to take care of this child. It's not just the mom. And so we would have that teamwork understanding. And it also just gave us more time to spend together. It also caused a lot of fights, which I will share in the second to follow up with this. But looking back overall, it really helped Thomas understand what it is like to, raise a child, take care of a child, because moms, we have that, instinct to take care of your child. It just like, it's like, okay, I know what to do. Like my body literally created this child, so I know what to do. So I know I need to get up and I know I need to go feed him, and I'm going to do what I can to stay awake. And the husbands, it's not, because they didn't carry this child. I mean, they have the instinct, but it may not be as bonding. So him getting up and doing that every night while he wasn't holding Tate, he was experiencing that with us, and it honestly helped me feel so less alone. I had somebody in there with me, so I wasn't just like sitting by myself in the middle of the night doing this. Now, again, I say all this that Thomas didn't have a job where he had to go and, do something really physically exhausting all day, and it would be dangerous for him to do that on no sleep, So I'm very aware of that, but as much as you can in those early years, like do things like that as a team, and it helps, have a lot less resentment for, the moms who are, or it helps against the resentment of like, okay, well, I'm doing all these things and you're not doing anything. It's like, okay, no, you are pulling your weight the way that you can, and we're really doing this together. It's really great. And if I didn't have to work a job, that schedule honestly might have been different if my only job was to be a stay-at-home mom, because being a stay-at-home mom is seriously such an intense job, honestly. Taking care of your house, cooking all of your meals, keeping your children alive, like it is such a job. And the way that people view stay-at-home moms not being a job is insane, because if you have somebody come over and watch your child, aren't you paying them? If you have a chef come to your house, aren't you paying them? If you have a house cleaner come to your house, aren't you paying them? So how in the world do people think that stay-at-home moms are not a job? It's not a job. Like, that's crazy that people still think that. So, but if that was the only job that I had to do and I could take a nap, I'll take naps, maybe we would have been a little bit different with like Thomas getting up with me every night. But I had a job I had to do. I had to do some marketing. And I know that might not seem like, the hardest job in the world, but you had to be creative. And I had no thoughts in my head, not one. So I definitely needed the sleep. And so we did what we could to work together on that. And it truly was like such a team building experience. And so remembering that you're on a team and acting like you're on the team, it definitely helps you, is a way of prioritizing your marriage when you're parenting young children, because you're in this together, and we're really just trying to speak against any resentment. And obviously it's going to be there. It's going to happen. It's a part of it. But if we can lessen that as much as we can, that is key. And that leads me to point number 2, which is that what is said at 2 a.m. is forgiven. Like, we just need to remember that. What is said at 2 a.m. is forgiven. The things I said to my husband at 2 a.m., when he's, got up with me out of bed, I would be so furious that he would be sleeping on the floor. Which, looking back, I'm like, Hannah, what were you thinking? Your husband was got up out of bed with you to be with you so you weren't alone while you're breastfeeding your child in the middle of the night, and you're upset that he's asleep? I was furious. Now, there were definitely some moments during Tate's first year of life where Thomas would get a little bit more sleep than I would, and that would make me really frustrated, and there was definitely some resentment there. But what is said at 2 a.m., it's just got to be forgiven. It's just got to be forgiven, unless you say some like real out-of-pocket thing that's like super crazy. But even then, I'm like, you probably didn't mean it. It's fine. It's fine. You know what I'm saying? Like, those little fights, like, they're like, we don't have to circle back to that. It's fine. It was a 2 a.m. thought. And that really was a way of us prioritizing our marriage, because we didn't spend time trying to hash out every little thing that was said at 2 a.m. when I was truly speaking out of sleep deprivation, when Thomas was truly sleeping out of sleep deprivation. Like, speaking out of sleep deprivation, we weren't actually meaning the things that we were saying to each other. We were just truly so exhausted. And honestly, I should have been medicated a lot earlier than I was. Things would have been a lot better. Things would have been a lot better if I was medicated earlier, but I wasn't. And I'm grateful for the time that I did get medicated, because it saved my life. But we just need to set that rule of like, what is said after 2 a.m. is just forgiven. It's just forgiven, especially when you're up every hour all night long because you're not sleep training and you're just tired. I really did not realize the impact sleep deprivation had on me until I wasn't sleep deprived anymore. And wow, I'm actually a person who has thoughts and opinions and can get cute and look nice and be a fun person and be a good friend. Like, all those things that I thought were not a part of me anymore were still a part of me. I was just sleep deprived, so I couldn't get to that part of me because I was sleep deprived. So what is said after 2 a.m. is forgiven. And I hope you guys can understand what I'm saying by that. I'm not saying that if your spouse or you say something that is like the most hurtful thing in the entire world that's such a deep cut and like can ruin your marriage. Like, okay, that's not obviously forgiven. We need to talk about that. But just the like little fights here and there about like you didn't move fast enough, or you didn't put the diaper on the right way, or I thought you were going to get up and I thought you were going to get up, so now we're fighting because neither person is getting up. Like, it, it's fine. It's going to be fine. It's not make or break to your marriage. And it's not always worth trying to rehash all the things that you said in the middle of the night. Sometimes it's worth rehashing. If you're saying the same things over and over and over and they're starting to get hurtful, okay, let's talk about that. But a one-off here and there, I'm like, we're sleep deprived. It's fine. It's not the end of the world. That really saved my marriage. And I know there's a scripture that says like, do not let the sun go down on your anger. But I am somebody who is a go to bed angry person. Now, if you're having like a massive fight and it's turning into something that it shouldn't be, that is when I really do think sleep is helpful, because you can have a clear mind at the next day to actually talk about what you're going through. But when it says do not go to bed on your anger, I think it is talking about it's important to forgive people and work through your anger. And I am going to tell Thomas, no matter how mad I am at him, that I love him and I'm going to kiss him goodnight. And I think that that's our way of being like, we're still mad at each other, because I can't get unmad right now before I go to bed, but like, I love you and I'm for you and we're on a team and we're doing this together and we're in this together and I love you. We're going to work this out in the morning. Like, I think that's a really good, healthy place to be in. The next way to prioritize your marriage while parenting a young child is to understand that date nights are valuable, but it can't be the only thing you rely on. I feel like anytime we talk about this, or you see people talk about this on the internet, they always talk about date nights, date nights, date nights. And yes, date nights are very valuable. But the reality is, when you're parenting a young child, like, that can't be the only thing you rely on to keep your marriage alive, because you're not going on dates as much as possible. And if you are, your dates are looking different, especially if you're a young mom who's maybe dealing with some postpartum anxiety or postpartum depression. Like, you're not leaving the house and your mind is shifting off from your baby. Like, you're not leaving the house and not thinking about what your child is doing at that time. Like, if you're leaving and at 7:30, at 7:30 your kid's taking a bath. And so you're wondering how the babysitter is doing with bath time. Like, you're wondering about that. You're wondering if the milk that you left was enough, or you're sitting at dinner and your boobs are starting to hurt because you're getting engorged because it's time to breastfeed and you forgot your pump, or you didn't want to pump at the restaurant. Like, your brain is always going. That's what happens when you're a mom. Your brain is always going. And so date nights look a little bit different. And so that's why you can't just rely on a date night to help you prioritize your marriage. It's about all the moments in between those date nights that I think are super important. And we will talk about those, about maximizing your time with your spouse, and about over communication, which I think is truly key for prioritizing your marriage when you're young, or when you have a young kid. But you can't just rely on date nights. Like, I think they're super important and you really do have to have them. I think if you can go once a month, that's incredible. If you can go twice a month, that is really incredible. But like, once a month, at least, if you can. Now, I don't think that we were going on dates once a month, and we're still not even consistent with going on dates once a month. We try to like take turns with our friends babysitting, but it just doesn't always happen, unfortunately. And so we are, just in that season where it is not always going to happen for us to go on a date night. So we do have to prioritize the moments in between, but it really is valuable to get a date night on the calendar where you can have a night for yourself as much as you can. And I do want to tell you, like, if you're in the young baby stage, it does get easier to leave your baby. I'm still thinking about him. Like, when I leave the house, I'm wondering what Tate's doing. I'm wondering if I'm missing the cute smile that he just learned to make. Like, I'm wondering if he's talking nonstop like he is. Like, you guys, you can't get a word in when you're around Tate. He is just talk. He knows every word in the dictionary, and he's not even 2. It's really crazy. And yes, I do think that my child hung the moon and the stars, okay? But he is so smart, and I'm just wondering, like, what he's doing. So I'm not saying that I'm able to check out, but it does get easier the older they get. Like, I feel like I trust people more with him because he's more of a person who can take care of himself a little bit more. He's not like a fragile baby who doesn't understand that mom's going to come back, So it definitely gets easier to leave your child, in my opinion, but it's still not easy. And I'm not just like checking out, like peace out, unless it's like my close circle of people that are watching him. I do feel a little bit better, but it still is hard. When I leave, with Thomas is watching him, for the most part, I'm like, okay, bye. But when I'm about to drop him off for daycare in the spring, I'm going to be unwell. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. So it's not just like an easy goodbye when you're doing date night. But it does get easier. It does get easier as your baby gets older, as you have more, time as a parent, as you are in this a little bit longer. It definitely does get easier. I just feel like they're also easier to manage when they're a little bit older. Now, the toddler stage is crazy. And like, my child likes to jump off everything that he looks at. And so it is crazy, but you can manage that a little bit more than a baby who is screaming, crying because they want their mom's boob and their mom's boob is not there. It's not the same. But date nights are definitely valuable. And as much as you can when you're on your date night, like use it as a time to connect and use it as a time to check in on your spouse, check in on your partner, ask how they're doing, ask how they're managing things, like really get to the nitty gritty of like how you're doing and how they're doing. And so you can have that real intentional time. And every now and again, if you want to like go do something fun and watch a movie, that's definitely key. Like I know a lot of times with our date nights, we would either use them to have like really good conversation or we'd go have a lot of fun because that's really what we needed. We needed some fun. I needed to be able to check out a little bit. And sometimes I can't do that check out while we're having intense conversations. And so you have to kind of feel the vibe. But I do think you need to have a blend of both. Like remind each other like why you fell in love, why you love each other, and go on those really romantic, fun dates. And then also have that like really impactful conversation that you haven't been able to have because you have been cleaning spit up all the time, So like really maximize your date nights when you have them and know that they are valuable, but know that you can't just solely rely on them when you are in the season of life that you're in with parenting young kids. And this might be like, I've been thinking about this topic a lot because I saw a post on Instagram that said like this might be a hot take, but this is not the season to prioritize my marriage. Like we understand that we are doing the best that we can while we have our child, but we're not just like 100,000,000% putting our marriage first and letting our kids suffer. And I've been thinking about that a lot, and I think I agree. Like it is so important to prioritize your marriage, and that's what I'm doing, but I'm not doing it at the expense of my child. You know what I mean? Like I'm not doing it at the expense of my child. And I've known people and seen situations where that is what is happening. And that's where I think it's unhealthy to put your marriage first that much when your children are suffering. So are we in the stage of life where we're not doing a date night as often as we want? Absolutely. Is our marriage suffering because of that? Maybe. But we are really trying to maximize the time that we have in between. Do we always do that? Absolutely not. Last night we were on our phones all night. And I try really hard not to do that. Thomas tries really hard to not do that. But I was in the worst possible mood known to man yesterday. Like I was so foul. Like it was rough. Like I was not my best self. I was probably a -10 on the 1 to 10 scale of myself. Like I was in such a horrible mood. My period's about to start. I'm just like feeling really awful. And instead of like trying to make it better by playing a game or hanging out with Thomas, I just sat on my phone. And I'm not proud of that. And you're going to have moments like that. You're going to have days like that. But if you have days like that all the time, then your marriage is going to suffer. If you're not putting your spouse, trying to serve them and love them, then it is going to suffer. So those nights can't look like every night. It can't look like you're vegging out on TV every night. You have to have some kind of moments together, which is why I want to talk about maximizing your time between date nights with over communicating. Over communicate. We were talking about this in our life group, but it's just so important to over communicate because you're in the season where before, if you wanted to go do something, you didn't really have to like check with your spouse. You can just kind of go do it and it's fine. You can't do that anymore. You have a child. So you have to like over communicate about your expectations for the day, your expectations for the week, what's coming up on your calendar, what you are wanting to do, not just what you need to do, what you want to do. I have found putting in your calendar time alone for each spouse is definitely key. I'm a better wife. I'm a better mom when I have time to myself. So that's really important. Is trying to find time for myself, trying to find Thomas time for himself. I have found that is definitely important, but over communicating, like things that you really wouldn't have had to communicate before, you do now. And in turn, that is working on your marriage. That is putting your marriage first because you are trying to over communicate because also you're in sleep deprived mode, which means your brain is not operating at 100%, especially women. Like your brain literally changes when you get pregnant and it is not operating at 100%. So you just have to, that's why mom brain is so real. And so you over communicating is key because honestly, you might have thought that you communicated about something, but you didn't, or it wasn't as clear as what you thought it was going to be. So over communication is key during these times and in between date nights. And I also think it's important to do that all the time, like in your marriage, especially with young children, because you don't want to spend all of date night trying to like plan out your schedules and look at the calendar. Like that's not fun. That's not sexy. That's not a good time. You're trying to have a fun date night. You're trying to have like, a good time that maybe when you go home, you actually have sex for once and, you're not going to do that if you're spending the whole night talking about your calendar. And also when you're over communicating, you want to be talking about where you guys are at with like having sex. You know, after I had Tate, I did not want to have sex for a long time. Like it wasn't just like the 6 weeks. I was ready to go. I was really scared to have sex. I just didn't know like how my vagina was going to respond. I didn't know if my vaginismus would have just magically have come back. I didn't know if I was ready for all that touch because I had somebody touching me 24/7. So it just took me a while. I want to say it was like maybe month or week 12 maybe that we had sex. I really can't remember, but it wasn't just like immediately. And I find that very common amongst women. But it is very important to be communicating about that with your partner. And if your partner's anything like mine, they'll be like, okay, great. Yeah, whenever you're ready, it's fine. Like, I'm not rushing you, which I think is how the majority of partners respond, because they understand like what you just went through was insane with your body and crazy. And we're also trying to do newborn life, and that's really hard. But a big part of marriage is the physical intimacy part. And so making sure you're talking about that is key. Scheduling sex if you have to, if you've had it before and you're ready to have again. Also just like checking in and being like, hey, I know it's been a while, but I can't do this right now. It's like one more thing on my schedule. I don't want it to be that way, but that's how it is. And just like having those open conversations is great because it helps relieve some tension, some unspoken tension that you may have in your life right now. And so just trying to avoid that and get ahead of that is very important, and it can be very key. And so over communicating about your sex life is important, and take as much time as you need. Like there's really no rush. If your husband loves you, he's there for you. Sex is not like a biological need. I do think it is very important to have physical intimacy in a marriage, but it's not like a biological need. Like you will survive your life without it, you know, but I do think it is important in a marriage. And so making sure you're talking about that is key. And the last thing that I want to talk about is using your bedtime wisely. So my child did not necessarily have a bedtime for the first 16 months of his life, because he would just, our schedule was all over the place. We tried to implement bedtime. We tried to do bedtime at the same time every night, and we did for a long time, but we'd lay him down, he'd be up the next hour. So during that stage of life, once Tate went to bed, you got to go to bed. I went to bed. There was no like, are we going to check in? We're going to talk. We're going to hang out. Like when I wasn't sleeping, when Tate was asleep, I worked as hard as I could to go to bed. So that is definitely my recommendation for you, is like if you're in the season of life where your child is not sleeping, once your child goes to bed, you go to bed too. Once you get on a consistent schedule, you know, and you've got a couple hours in the evening to spend to yourself, use that time wisely. You know, don't make every night a night where you have some big like sit down conversation, checking in. Maybe that is good for you, but I have found that that's not fun, because I'm like, okay, now it's like one more thing that we have to do. But use that time wisely. Play games with your spouse. I think we have lost the art of playing games. We've gotten too comfortable with our phone. We need to play some games. Sequence is a great 2-player game. There's a 2-player Catan game that is super fun. You can play, what is it? Scrabble. There we go. Scrabble is a great 2-player game. So there are 2-player games out there that you can play with your spouse. So you got to play some games. Connect 4, you know, it's really fun. So you got to play some games with your spouse just to have fun. Have a fun movie night, you know. Go to bed if you need to go to bed. Like, but you really need to use that bedtime wisely. I feel like me and Thomas, when we're doing our best, is when we are maximizing our time once Tate goes to bed. So that's when we take time to clean up downstairs, when we take time to do the dishes, when we take time to have a clean, you know, space downstairs. We know we feel better in the morning, but we've done that together. So we're still like spending time together. But then after that, I don't just have this like looming guilt over me that when we are playing games, or like, oh, but we should be, you know, cleaning the house. We should be doing this. Like, it's good to like do as much as we can when Tate is going down for bed. For me, like I know a lot of nights I try to do that. Last night did not happen. Tate went to bed and I sat my little booty on the couch and I did not move, but that is what I needed to do last night. But I paid for it this morning. Our house was a disaster, but now it is not a disaster anymore. Thank the Lord. But just maximizing that time is definitely key. Like when Tate goes to bed tonight, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to clean up downstairs. I'm going to have Thomas come down to a clean house and we're going to play some games, and it's going to be really great. And I'm really excited. So maximizing that time, that bedtime, is key. Have an at-home date night. Plan that when your child goes to bed on Friday night, you are going to stay up late and watch a movie. And you can't do that all the time because your child's going to wake up at 7 a.m. regardless of how late you went to bed. So you have to think about those things. But try to have an at-home date night. Really maximize that time spent once your child goes to bed and you actually have time together, when you know it's like happening on a consistent basis. Because when it's not, your child's not sleeping, you just need to go to bed. Like, you just got to go to bed. You need to sleep. But when that's not happening, or when you are getting a consistent bedtime in, it's just so great to spend that time together, connecting and being together and loving each other, and whatever that looks like, whether it's having sex or watching a movie or having good conversation or playing some games, like really using that time together is great. And if you're anything like me and you have like work things that you need to work on, and you do that after your child goes to bed, you can do that some, but try not to do that every night. So that way you're still having time to connect with your spouse, and it'd be like a fun thing that you guys look forward to. So I would love to know your thoughts on how you have prioritized your marriage when you have young children. So let me know, send me a DM, comment on this on Instagram or wherever. Like, I would love for us to continue the conversation because I want to know your thoughts. So you can follow me at say.whatpodcast on Instagram, and on TikTok, I'm Say What Podcast, and I'm starting to post more, which is really fun over there. And don't forget the Eden. You can buy it on Amazon now. So I will link the Amazon link to the Eden below. Thank you guys so much for the support. And I love you so much. I hope you guys have a great week, and we will talk soon.